Blackie for Shaman's Forge Woodscraft, and continue with my Percussion Revolver series. I've had several of my followers have asked me questions pertaining to caps coming off of their guns, problems with ignition, and etc. So I'd like to address that at this time. Now the first thing is the differences between Remington type and Colt type cylinders. Let me show you the difference here. And please excuse the low light. We've got tropical storm, actually now Hurricane Barry going into Louisiana, and I'm getting oddball storm bands off of it. So I'm in between rain bands out here trying to shoot this for you guys. This is a Remington cylinder, and as you can see the slot, and this is a Colt cylinder, and you see how open that slot is. Now where the problem comes in is when you're trying to use a capper to cap it. The Colts are easy to do, but the Remingtons are too tight for most of the most common cappers you find. Now a cure for this, and Mike Bellevue did that on one of his videos, is he removes the nipple and then he takes a Dremel tool and he opens it up, takes it and opens up this channel around it. The reason Remington did that is in not necessarily the Colt, but some of the early percussion revolvers, the nipples angled out more. Instead of being vertical, they were kind of angled out. And holstering the gun could wipe a cap off. And so, and those caps those days were very, very thin. They were sometimes called foil caps. And so they would be wiped off easily. So what Remington was trying to do was to put it kind of protected inside of an area to keep it from being easily wiped off from holstering and etc. But in modern times, if you're going to be using a capper because you're doing competitions or things like that where you need to do high volume, I recommend you go watch Mike Bellevue's video and remove the nipple and open this up with a Dremel tool. It's something you can do. It's not that difficult, and if you just take your time and go easy, you can do it. Now, let's address some of the other more common problems we have with percussion cones, or nipples as we say modern. Here's my representation of a nipple. With the top cone, you have the shoulder right here that comes down. This is where the wrench hooks to. And then you have the section that comes down with the threads on it that screw into the cylinder. This bottom edge right here is a critical dimension. And what that means is when the cylinder is created and that opening is made for the nipple to screw in, that depth is critical, because once the nipple is screwed in, it has to be a certain height so that when the hammer comes down, it should have a couple of thousandths press so that when it hits, it detonates the cap. If the nipple stands too proud, it means it stands too far up, the hammer is actually hitting it and it will batter the nipple and make it flare out over time, causing ignition problems. If it's too short, which means it's a little too deep into the cylinder, now when the hammer hits, it don't necessarily slap hard enough or have enough reach to detonate a cap. So, you have a percussion revolver and you're having trouble with ignition. Let's troubleshoot the problem. First is that I put the cap on, I cock it, and when I pull the trigger, the hammer falls, and you hear this thud as the hammer fully falls, but it does not ignite. I recock it back to that chamber, cock it, and on the second pull, it does detonate. I'm suspicious then that the cone can be a little bit fat. This section right up here, this critical area, may have, from being fired, battering, or manufacturer, it be a little bit fat. And when you push the cap on it, it is not fully seating, so that when the hammer sits, it shoves it on home, and now it fits. The second hit, it fires. What if I go click, 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 and like on the third time it goes bang? Then I'm suspicious that the cone is too short. It's sitting too deep. I can easily check this or correct this if I'll simply put the wrench onto the percussion nipple and back it off like a 8 turn. That will cause the nipple to come up a little bit higher. And therefore when I pull the trigger, not only does it hit and does my ignition come back with bang, bang, bang every time. That means that it's sitting too deep and the cone itself is a little short. Okay? Now, I have got a problem where I'm shooting the gun and the percussion caps are not reliably staying on. Sometimes I'll fire and want to fall off. Well, there's several means to do this. You can pinch them slightly oval, and this does add more friction from the side. However, quite often what the problem is the shape of this nipple right here, this top cone, has become a little too rounded. Think instead of flat like one of them red Solo cups standing up, think like it's kind of swelled out like that. And what's happening is the cap is actually sitting up there and being flared out too big, that now it doesn't have the friction it needs, and therefore it wants to come off with the slightest little thing, because you want that edge to slide onto it like a glove, not just be sitting there like that, because that leaves a proud edge that's easy for anything to brush and it just fall off. Now what can you do to do that? You have tested the gun and made sure that the ignition is the ignition is good, but the cap is falling off repeatedly. Okay, you've tried pinching it a little bit and putting it on, and it's still falling off. That tells me that that nipple is a little too blunt. What you can do is this. You take the nipple out of the gun. On the threads down here at the bottom, you're going to wrap masking tape around it like one time. Okay? Cut it off short. You're going to take a drill and you're going to put it threads in and tighten it up so the top of that cone is standing up. Okay? Now turn the drill on slowly. You want it just rotate, kind of like that. No high speed here, just turning. And with that drill turning, I want to take the edge of a file and just touch it to the side. Now when you look at a file, like a Mill Bastard or etc., one side is smooth and one side has teeth on it. You want the side with the teeth. I want that nipple standing up, and I want to touch it on the side about that top third right there. I just want to touch it. 1, 2, 3. Pull it off. That's it. Now what that's going to do is I'm going to scratch it up a little bit. I'm going to rough that edge up. Give that cap something to grip. 2, it's going to reduce that flare out in just slightly. Do not go overboard with this, guys. All you're doing is just lighten up there and let it score it so it makes a mark. It makes it a little shiny. Don't sit there and go, you made it too small, it breaks. Okay? What I'm wanting to do is just merely put it up there so I form a ring around it. That last little third from there to the top, I want to just shine it a little bit. Okay? Then I take it out, take the tape off, put it back in the gun, and try it. By doing this, I have created friction on the sides of the nipple itself to hold that cap. 2, I have reduced it so that the cap sits fully easier. 3, if this improves ignition, if this improves my problem with the caps falling off, it's a good time to now start saving up the money to order a set of caps, because nipples, because you know that these cones or nipples are on their last legs. Either the metal is a little soft, or for whatever reason. You have corrected it, all you can do with this. So now your next step is to get replacements. So use it until you get your replacements. I wouldn't do this more than once. Once you've flared it down, if it continues to flare, it's the metal soft, and you can't do this more than once or twice, and then you've changed critical dimensions, and eventually it just won't hold a cap. If you reduce this top cone too much, the cap won't fit on it at all. It just rattles. Okay? So all we're trying to do is put that file up there and just shine it so it's got a little bit of teeth to it now, and make it so the cap sits fully and grips a little bit better. That's all. Hope this gives you some ideas, guys. Please leave any questions or comments below. And I've got a little bonus footage for you coming up here in just a second. Till next time, I'm Blackie for Shaman's Forge, Woodscraft, wishing you a safe journey. What we're going to be talking about today is the bullets by KEITO OJAMA in .36 caliber. Now this is his bullet that he manufactures. It is a flat-nosed, rebated base bullet. Looks a lot like a KEITO bullet, but it's being used in a percussion revolver. Now the gun that we're using to test is my Pieta 1861 Navy, which I call Stormborn. She has proved to be very reliable and accurate. And thus far in my shooting, I've been very impressed with this bullet. Now let's discuss this for a second. The bullet, compared to a standard conical bullet, has more weight forward in it. This is more shaped like a modern KEITO bullet, a modern handgun bullet, but still works well in the rifling patterns that you find in percussion revolvers. So it will generate more hit and more impact due to that flat nose, and it flattens out in loading, so it's more like a semi-wad cutter on impact, which is what you want up close on small game. Now, how am I loading it? What is the loading? Like I've done in the past, I took the cylinder free, I took my pattern measure, and I determined that the complete capacity from top to bottom in a given chamber of my cylinder was 40 grains. I then took the bullet, and up against the 40 grain measure, starting at the top, I saw how much space, volume, the bullet was consuming, and that was 20 grains worth. That left 20 grains as a starting load for me. So it's 20 grains, the bullet, and an ox-yoke wonder wad. The testing is with the bore has been wiped down and loaded, wet down with bore butter before each 5-shot string, and the front of the cylinder is wiped at the end of every 5-shot string. Now to load it, I'm going to take my pattern measure, which is set for 23 grains. I have figured out with my gun, inching up and inching up to where it patterned the best was something around 23 grains. Okay? I'm going to fill it up to the top. I'm going to give it a couple of taps and let it settle. When it stops settling, I'm going to top it up the second time to fill it up at the top. Tap it once or twice more, and that is my powder charge. I would then put it into one of my Dixie tubes to store it for me to shoot. In this case, I'm going to load it straight to the gun. Now, cylinder free rotating, I come up to the chamber I'm going to utilize. I pour it in. Once all of it is in there, I take my knuckle and I tap a few times to settle it down in the chamber, and you'll be amazed how much it disappears down in that hole. Then I take my ox-yoke wonder wad, I push it in with my finger flat, and I rotate it underneath the rammer. I bring the rammer down and start it. Now what I'm doing is just making sure that it's flat, not being cocked. Okay? The front of that rammer squares it up. But don't worry, it's stopping with more than enough that when the bullet goes down, it's going to make contact. There is no and shall be no airspace in a percussion revolver. I rotate it back. I take the bullet, see if I can get it where you can see it. I take the bullet and push it in like that, and you got to wiggle it a little bit there. See how it sits in there up to that driving band? I rotate it underneath, take the rammer, put it against my ribs, and I ram it home. Okay, that target on the right, the orange dot, is the target that I'm shooting at. There's no holes in that cardboard at this time. Okay, 5 shots, KEITO OJAMA, 36 caliber, conical bullet, 23 grains, power decks with a wonder wad. Very first group ever fired with it. That's not bad at all. 2 at the 7 o'clock and 2 higher, and I think that's a third one on the right. So that's my 5 shots, and they're all right around that 2-inch target. That's not bad for a very first without any other building it up. Okay. That is not a hole. That is where a wad hit. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That is probably the flyer of my last shot. But as you can see, that's all touching the edge of that small target. Now I can refine this a little bit more, but this is strictly off the top with KEITO's bullet. It's punching a nice clean hole in all of them, but that's definitely where a wad whacked it. Right there. So, this will require a little bit more load development to tweak it, see how it likes black powder, see if it likes slightly different granulation, whatever. But I will dial this in and I'll get back with you. But my initial impression is it's accurate, seems to hit very well, and I believe it'd be a very good investment to try out. Hope this gives you some ideas, guys. Please keep watching, and if there's any questions or anything you'd like to hear from me, please leave them in the comments below. Till next time, I'm Blackie, wishing you safe journeys. Have a great day, guys.